stakeholders, your board of directors, et cetera. Just again, kudos to all of you for keeping everyone informed and also continue to keep the ball moving as we grind through this together. So thank you. Just want to, before we get into the meat of the matter today, just wanted to make sure we're clear about why we're here today and emphasize that this is the time for ideas. We want to check in with you and make sure you're okay, but also talk about, and update you on things that we are knowledgeable about, but also be honest about things we're not knowledgeable about. And there's a chat. Oh, thank you, Susie. Okay. All these things you can talk and have conversation going at the same time. Feel free to think really big and bold. There's, this is all new to all of us. So, while there's some things that we have to abide by because of rules and laws and some restrictions, we really want to think out of the box because this is unprecedented time for all of us, for you, especially on the ground. So that's really the meat of today, what we want to talk about. As a system, we will be measured on how we collectively respond to community in crisis. We need to be deliberate, but also swift in how we come to strong conclusions, strong strategies, and strong best practices. Tomorrow, we meet with our board of directors to update them and also approve items. And so it's business as usual on one end, but it's a different kind of board of directors meeting, different than anyone I've ever had to deal with, in that we will spend a lot of time with a very similar conversation to what we're doing today with you, and what bold action, what collaboration can we do, what support can we do together to, again, make sure that we make this as easy as possible and for all our stakeholders involved in our customer base. So we'll start with that. A few things to update you on. I'm going to move my eyes to my other screen so I can actually keep track and say the right things. We closed the offices of PA Career Link downtown and in Forest Hills effective as of March 16th. The staff continues to provide employment services such as resume prep and/or application completion online and by phone. Our team is also quickly developing online tools and resources to help job seekers and workers virtually. Please continue to refer your clients when appropriate and where they feel appropriate. Most of our youth providers are also closed their offices effective March 16th, but many have continued to provide critical support to the young people we serve to help them weather this crisis. While we launched the Learn and Earn application to the public on March 16th, application support is available only virtually through online and phone calls. We'll answer any other questions you have about that in a bit. The business services team at CareerLink and our industry partnership developers at Partner for Work are working to address immediate hiring needs, like the ones you've seen with Giant Eagle, Amazon, and CVS. These are opportunities your clients can connect with immediately. We continue to work with employers with surge hiring needs, and we'll keep you well informed on all of those needs of the companies that I mentioned and any new situations that arise. You've heard about the changes in unemployment compensation, waiving the waiting week and work search requirements, and potentially opening the door to workers' compensation for workers exposed on the job. That's just an update for you on that. We also know the early warning network and rapid response teams are working diligently to adjust their business models to meet the needs of business while obeying the governor's orders, to stay in place. Moreover, we have tapped into our local and national network, including the Allegheny Conference, Department of Labor, the National Association of Workforce Boards, and a consortium that we're part of, a member of, called Midwest Urban Strategies, to bring resources and big ideas to the region as quickly as possible, with more information coming from all those entities. In addition to labor and industry at the state level, in addition to labor and industry funding, such as the PA Smart Award, and Strategic Innovation Funding, USDOL also recently announced $100 million in emergency funding to address workforce issues across the country. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is currently working on a proposal, as are many states around the country. We will do our best to bring these dollars to the benefit of the clients that you all serve respectively. So while these actions are a start, they only get us part of the way to where we want to get to, and to continue and to serve our community in better schools. We need your help. We need your insight to do more and to do better. We also need you to act as a system rather than as an individual partner. So we're asking collectively, which is why we're here today, to think of how we can come together and work as a system in a systematic way to help the folks you're working with individually and respectfully, and to really be an advocate and a resource to those folks that are out here. I'll stop there. Are there any questions for me directly about anything that I may have addressed? If not, I will turn it over to our staff, in particular Dylan Moore, for an update from a policy perspective. But before Dylan comes on, are there any questions directly for anything that I may have addressed? Come on, I wasn't that clear, I'm pretty sure. So I'm sure there is a question or two. If not, you can also hold it and ask later. All right, Dylan, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to go on mute.
All right, sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for joining us on the call today. I know there's a lot of different news and information coming out pretty much every hour or every 15 minutes. But I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to give you guys a sort of broad overview of some of the policy activity that's going on at both the state level as well as at the federal level. And I'm sure a lot of you have been reading the news on these updates as well, but just kind of wanted to go over some of the key items that we've been hearing about and have been part of discussions surrounding. So Earl had mentioned that there have been some changes made to requirements for unemployment compensation. So Pennsylvania is currently experiencing record-breaking numbers of people filing for unemployment claims. There was more than 540,000 claims submitted to the Department of Labor and Industry between March 16th and March 24th. So some of the key updates that have been made to the unemployment compensation, they have created new bases for qualifying for unemployment that are specific to COVID-19. Access to unemployment benefits have been made somewhat faster by waiving a 1-week waiting period that was previously required. The work search and work registration requirements that were previously required have been currently waived. And the UC system has expanded access to some of their services through their online platform as well to make that a little bit more accessible to folks that are submitting and processing claims. Looking at the state legislator, the House has currently passed a bill that would move the Pennsylvania primary election from April 28th to June 2nd to allow for some more time for this hopefully outbreak and challenges around it to process a little bit. And this bill is currently being reviewed by the Senate. Both chambers have passed legislation that would address some of the challenges related to the PA public school systems. So there was a bill that went through both chambers that some of the key items that were in the bill would eliminate the 180-day period of instruction requirement during the crisis. It would require schools to ensure that they, and a lot of this information, by the way, it needs to be hashed out, so there's a lot of details, but ensuring schools that would make a, quote, good faith effort to develop a plan for continuing education during school closures, and also ensuring that public school staff would not see a change in their compensation during the closure period. So that's some of the big activity that I've been learning about and part of discussions around at the state level. Moving to the federal level, there's currently been 2 substantial stimulus packages that have been passed by both chambers of Congress and have been signed into law by the president in response to COVID-19. The first stimulus package was passed on March 6th, and that is largely focused on providing additional support to our the medical response to COVID-19. So it provides $8.3 billion, the large majority of that going to the Department of Health and Human Services to invest in both medical research, such as vaccinations and treatment, but to also support the state and local response efforts to COVID-19. The second stimulus package was signed into law on March 18th, and this legislation provides a greater focus on creating protections for workers in response to COVID-19 pandemic. So some of the key items in that legislation include paid leave guarantees for certain workers, up to 12 weeks of job protected leave. The law also expands food assistance, including suspending SNAP work requirements during the crisis. And the law also increases funds for unemployment insurance benefits. So it provides additional $1 billion of support to state unemployment compensation systems to help address this increased demand for unemployment claims. And then you may have heard about in the news this morning, there was a third stimulus package that just passed the Senate in a unanimous vote yesterday evening. It's expected to cost nearly $2 trillion, that's trillion with a T, dollars, which would make it the largest economic stimulus in American history and potentially modern history across the globe. And so there's a lot of information going out about this law right now. And if you have any specific questions, I might not be able to answer it on the call, but we have people taking notes, so can definitely follow up with any specific questions. But just to give you sort of a broad overview of some of the key items that are coming out of this legislation. The legislation would include direct payments to taxpayers to the amount of $1,200 for individuals with incomes up to $75,000. This amount of payments would be phased out and would end for individuals that are making $99,000 or more per year. As a part of this direct payments, families would also receive $500 per child in their home. One of the concerns coming out of the direct payment process is that the design, which focuses on taxpayers, could potentially prevent payments from reaching vulnerable populations who might not file tax returns. So I think that is an issue that is currently kind of being sorted out through the regulatory process. Another key item out of this legislation is a major expansion in unemployment benefits. So it would extend the length of time that people can qualify for unemployment by 13 weeks. It would also include a 4-month enhancement of benefits, which would provide an additional $600 per week during that 4-month period to individuals accessing unemployment. And the law would expand benefits to include people that are working in the gig economy, such as Uber and Lyft riders, which were previously not included as a part of that unemployment insurance process. A big item out of this legislation as well is a $500 billion funding amount for corporations that have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 epidemic. So those industries like airlines, hotels, and other types of companies that have experienced a negative impact could qualify for loans from the Federal Reserve. As a result of a lot of pressure from Democrats, the bill does include a lot of requirements and oversight around these payments to corporations. So it requires immediate disclosure of who is receiving the money, public disclosure of that. And it also creates a mechanism for government oversight over how these funds are allowed to be spent. There's also a lot of funding made available for businesses. So for example, businesses who meet certain requirements can qualify up to $5,000 per worker for keeping idled employees on their payroll during the crisis. And as a last key item, there's an additional $150 billion to both state and local governments to support a lot of the significant loss in tax revenue that has occurred during the crisis period. So where that legislation is right now, the House is expected to review it today and largely expected to pass the legislation on Friday, sending it to the president's desk. And after this third round of stimulus package is passed through, Congress is expected to take a break, reconvene later in April, and there's a lot of expectation for a fourth stimulus package to process through the legislature as well. And based on some of the discussions that we're hearing, it's anticipated this next round will have an increased focus on workforce development, employment, and training as a part of the law. So that's sort of where we are right now in terms of my updates, and welcome any questions, or if you want to hold off and wait until the question period at the end of the call, happy to respond to it then as well. So thanks.
Thanks, Dylan. So if you have questions towards the end of the call, we can unmute, or you can unmute and ask them, or you can type them into the chat box, and we're monitoring that as we go. So Earl gave a little bit of an overview about where we are as Partner for Work. Dylan gave one about the policy side of the house. And I just want to start my section of this call by saying thank you to all of you, and that it is wonderful to see your faces. I know that from the human perspective, you guys are doing incredible work. And it is also very, very clear to me that as a system, we are strong, and that we will emerge from this stronger, provided that we continue to have these conversations and continue to work closely together. So one quick, really fun back of the house update on monitoring, because I know you guys are all excited about that. And that is just to say that our monitoring team is continuing to work through this. All of Partner for Work is working remotely at this point, but you may be getting some monitoring questions from Matt and from his team. They still do have to monitor, and we'll do it in as painless a way as humanly possible, but we'll also be really cognizant of the fact that you guys are all working remotely. Your files might be in a location that you are not presently in, and will be flexible if you need flexibility on those guidelines. So if you have any questions, please do reach out to Matt or a member of his team about that. One of the challenges that we have, that we recognize as a significant challenge right now, is that to be compliant and enroll new people in WIOA, we have to have a live electronic, or a live signature. It can't be an electronic signature. And so that's an area where we're working with the state and doing some advocacy. We need to be able to serve people who are dislocated workers. We need to be able to get new folks into the system. Opportunity youth are being hit particularly hard by this crisis, as they generally are anytime that something like this, an economic downturn, happens. And so we want to be able to get them in the door. We want them virtually. We want to be able to serve them in a virtual capacity. And so we're working closely with the state to see what ability they can give us to have a waiver on that end. And we'll keep you posted. In the meantime, you can and should continue to serve your clients. We want you to be that level of support for them. We want you to think creatively, per Earl's directive earlier today. We know that the work that you're doing and the connection point that you're providing with all of the people that you're working with is incredibly important. And so we want you to be thinking creatively about how that looks and what you can do from that perspective. We also know that, all of us are stressed and anxious and dealing with this situation in our own ways. And so when we have clients that are already at the margins of society, that they're going to be having more mental health crises, they're going to have less stability as far as food security goes, all of those things. And so you provide critical services during this time. And so we want to help you continue to do that in whatever capacity we can. So one key thing that we need from you is to share what's happening on the ground with us, because we can only advocate for changes with the state and with the feds if we know what's happening on the ground. And that's even more difficult for us to do, given that everyone's working out of their own homes. So please do tell us who's coming to you, how are they getting to you, what services are you able to provide, and what services have you not been able to provide. What do we need to do better in this case, and how can we change what we're doing in order to better support you? I hope that you have all been to our website, and I think it's partnerforwork.com/COVID-19, and you'll see that we have a list of resources there for the general public, for job seekers, for businesses, and for individuals who are in need of help. Certainly, if someone needs food assistance or something along those lines, 211 is a great resource. And the SNAP and CAO are still accepting new clients on a virtual basis. So if we can help with that and connecting your clients there, please let us know. One of the things that we're trying to do with the website is there are some employers who are surge hiring right now, and we're trying to get ahead of that as much as we can. We just posted a surge job from Family Links that pays $25 an hour on our website for caseworkers and for teen healthcare crisis workers. So those are critical jobs that need to be filled right now, that some of the people who are coming through your doors may be able to fill. Other jobs that are on there are ones from UPMC, from Giant Eagle, and from Philips in manufacturing. So there's a wealth of different jobs that are available on there. And if you don't have a connection with that industry or that business in particular, we may have a connection there, or the PA CareerLink staff do. And so please, if you want to refer someone, CVS is hiring for 200 pharmacy techs and other positions right now in the Pittsburgh area. So there are jobs out there for people who have recently been dislocated, and for opportunity youth or someone who's just ready to get into the workplace right now. One of the things that we're noticing per Dylan's comments and Earl's comments already is that a lot of people who are accessing the system right now are brand new to the system. And it is a time of anxiety and a time of just general frustration. And so customer service is incredibly important and incredibly critical in making sure that your staff is kind of thinking through and putting themselves in those shoes. $3.3 million, I'm sure, not dollars, sorry. I'm sure you saw the UC numbers out of the feds today, that 3.3 million new UC claims were filed last week across the United States. Per Dylan earlier, 540,000 in the Commonwealth. And that means that a lot of the people and businesses that are coming to our system right now are new. And so those folks, this is the first time that they are getting into our system, the first introduction that they've had to us, and we want to make sure that we are treating them with as much dignity and respect and connecting them with the resources that we possibly can. And that's on you guys to be able to do and leverage and push forward. We also know that on the youth side, a lot of you have no new slots or no slots that are available right now because you are fully enrolled. And so that's where we want to hear from you. If you're hearing from young people who say, I need help right now, how do I get help? Please let us know, and we'll see what we can do as far as adding new slots to your contracts. But unless we hear from you, then we don't know and can't anticipate those needs necessarily and where they're going to be. The other thing that our partners at the CareerLink and our Title I providers there, and a lot of you on the youth side and earn clients and providers are doing, is looking at online resources and online trainings. And that's an area where we want to encourage you to think creatively and encourage you to think about how we can effectively train people for the jobs that are critical right now, but then also keeping an eye on the longer term time horizon. So I've admonished my team, and I will continue to kind of push that message out to you providers, that we have to have two different timelines. One is right now, how do we fix these challenges and address the needs of our communities in the next minute, in the next week, in the next month? But we also have to be looking at, what does this look like in 3 months? How do we come back as a system stronger than we were before? And the only way that we do that is together. And so that's where we want to really make sure that we are all working as one collective entity to be able to serve job seekers as effectively as we possibly can. I want to make sure that you all know that the Learn and Earn application launched on March 16th. Maybe I didn't have enough coffee this morning. It is at jobs4summer.org. The numbers from where we are today versus where we were this time last year are fantastic. We are at almost double the number of applications. We know that means that has both positive and negative things that are driving that. So youth are very concerned with where they're going to work this summer. We want to provide work experiences for youth. We're doing some contingency planning on, we can't predict what the public health crisis is going to look like in 3 months, but we know that we still do want to be there for young people in the community, and that this is going to be an important economic stimulus for those young people and their families. And so that's a really important thing that we want to factor in. The other thing that I missed in my kind of monitoring update is that I want to make sure to let you know that if you are working on a discretionary project with us, so something like a teacher in the workplace or a strategic innovation grant or something along those lines, and there's a contract deadline, If we need to request a no-cost extension to the state because, for instance, all schools are closed and a lot of businesses are not doing teacher in the workplace type activities, please let our team know. And we want to put together a cohesive package that says we need to extend this contract for 3 months or 6 months in order to be able to effectively serve and meet what we said that we were going to be able to do. There was a question about are most of the applications for Learn and Earn coming through application support centers, or does it seem like folks are doing the apps on their own? Just for context, so that everyone knows, typically Learn and Earn pays for about 18 application support centers throughout the county. Many of those are the libraries throughout the county, and that's where young people can go to get assistance with finishing their Learn and Earn application. Those application support centers are closed to the public. Many of them are providing application support over the phone. We're seeing reduced numbers of youth who are indicating that they've gone through an application support center this year than we have in years past. Typically, it's about 60% of the young people use an application support center, and this year it's been about 20 to 30%. But we are thinking creatively about how we can make sure that application support centers can continue to do that outreach and continue to provide the services that we know are necessary for those young people. So with that, I will turn it over to Kristen Kramer, our Senior Director of Fiscal, to give you all a fiscal update. And then at the end, after Kristen has spoken for a little bit, then we'll come back and answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Hi, as Susie mentioned, thanks Susie, I am Kristen Kramer, the Senior Director of Fiscal here at Partner for Work. And we kind of just wanted to reassure everybody that we are doing everything possible to ensure that payments are going to be coming to you, the providers, in a timely manner. We are able to process our payables remotely in the same fashion that we always have, and there should be no interruption to the process of receiving payments and you guys submitting your invoices. We are working currently with PNC Bank and their product, which is called Cash Flow Insight. This system will allow us to send checks through the mail without us having to print them or get signatures. Or the other option is ACH payments, depending on the preference of your organization. We are currently going to be entering your business name into our Cash Flow Insight with PNC, and with that we'll also be entering your business email address, and that is going to prompt the PNC system to send you an invite through the mail, and the subject in your email is going to be Trib Inc. wants to pay you. When you receive this email, you're going to want to accept the invitation, and at that point it's going to walk you through some prompts of entering your banking information. If you want it to be an EFT payment, it will automatically get deposited into your account. If you choose the check option, just do not enter the ACH information for your routing and bank number. A check, just to let you know, once we enter stuff into PNC, if we do process a check for you, it'll take about 7 days. If you choose the ACH option, it will automatically be put into your bank account within 3 days. I also wanted to re-mention that most of your contracts, you do have the option to bill us 2 times throughout the month. So if you are having cash flow issues and you want a quicker turnaround on your cash, you do have the option to bill us 2 times a month per your contract. If you look at the contract language in there, it will tell you the specific dates. That is all I have. If you have any questions for me, as Susie mentioned, we'll open up this and you could ask your questions. But please be on the lookout for an email from Trib Inc. for PNC Bank so that you can fill out the information regarding the ACH payments. Thank you.
All right, so we'll open it up. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask them, or type it in the chat box if you'd rather do that. I will say too that from a compliance perspective, we have to serve participants, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to provide a service at least once every 90 days. So if you haven't been able to provide a service to a participant during this past week and a half, that's okay. You can still keep them enrolled. Now we want you to be able to provide services to your participants. And so that's where our team is absolutely here for you to help kind of brainstorm what can you do that's a value-added service that is available over the phone or through a Google Hangout or something along that line. Ashley has a question in the chat for Kristen. What's that email going to be titled, or who will the sender be, so that she can inform her fiscal staff?
Yep, the title is going to be TRIB Inc., TWRIB Inc. wants to pay you. I'll have kind of, this is the email, what it looks like, if you could see my screen. And you want to know who the sender is going to be. I'm going to look at my email, so you can move on, Susie. I'll look at my email and see who this is actually being sent from. But definitely capital TRWIB Inc. wants to pay you is the subject of the email.
And when can they expect that email, Kristen?
So I'm going to be going in and entering everyone in the system kind of as payments are coming up. So it's kind of going to be a progress probably over the next month. You'll be seeing these emails come through. I do have a lot of the youth providers. I had a list of them and all their email contacts that I'm going to start inputting. So I think within the next month, you're going to see the email coming through.
Hi. So I don't know if this is too much in the weeds for today, but our staff is very concerned, and we are too, about the fact that if schools remain closed indefinitely for the year or even for the next month, that a lot of the interim outcomes that we report on will be hard to achieve. Will there be leniency about that, or even for their incentives that we pay out? They're probably not going to get the full incentive because they haven't gotten that accomplished by the end of the school year. Will there be ways to pay us in different ways than through incentives? Sorry, if you want to, I'll just type out all the questions so it'll be easier.
No, those are good questions, Leah. And Earl, do you want to start and then I can come on board, or do you want me to take it? All right. So those are excellent questions, and questions, frankly, that we have for the state and the feds too. Partner for Work is committed to, we recognize this is, to use something that's been said quite a bit, uncharted territory. And so we know that some of your outcomes may not be what we thought we would be able to do 9 months ago. And so if we have flexibility on outcomes, then we are willing to have that conversation and look at ways that we can be more lenient and be reflective of the reality of the globe as it is right now. Where we don't have flexibility on outcomes, we're asking for flexibility on those outcomes from our state and federal partners. That area where we don't have flexibility is WIOA outcomes for the most part, and any outcomes that we collectively wrote into a discretionary grant proposal. We have far more flexibility on TANF youth outcomes than we do on TANF adult outcomes, for instance. So if you have specific questions related to your contract, talk to whoever your lead point of contact is on the Partner for Work team. We also know that the incentives that you provide to participants and stipends that you provide to participants on the youth side in particular, because not as many of our adult providers do that, are really important for them and their families right now. So we are at the drawing board with you and want to talk through what it would look like in order to be able to create something that would still allow your participants to earn their full incentives. So it's going to look different for every provider, and that's something that we should work closely on, you and your lead point of contact at Partner for Work, whoever that is. I'm going to read this question that's in the chat because some folks are on the phone and haven't seen or can't see the chat. So Amber Epps, thank you. Everybody, or NLA has put together some great materials that the BGC is using as well to send out to students. There are workforce readiness assignments that include articles to read, videos to watch, and questions that will need to be answered. These will be sent out a few times a week. Staff will also hold a Zoom call with their youth at least once a week to check in. Obviously, not everyone will participate, but it's a great way to engage multiple youth at once. That's fantastic. And if folks at NLA and BGC are willing to share those resources, we can help disseminate them to the other providers so that you can learn from what you guys are doing. So thank you, Amber. Thank you, Steve, and your team for working on that. If others have best practices that you want us to share with the provider network, we are happy to do that. From Kiera, I want to ask if everyone is on the PA CareerLink distribution list so that you can all have access to the employment opportunities that PA CareerLink is sourcing. So Kiera, if you could let me know what the best way for people to get onto that list if they're not, then I'll make sure to read that out and everyone can send an email to the right person to get onto that list. Another question, is there any advice for application support centers without direct contact with the public and the youth in the schools? That means potentially fewer apps that we get credit for and rely on the application support center funds to cover our staffing costs. We have no idea. I mean, this is just a weird world right now that we are in, and I want to be entirely candid that we don't have all of the answers. But what I will say is that we want to keep you whole as much as we possibly can, and we know that you're providing important services. So we have, we're working to kind of get you, well, I'm getting a note that my internet connection is unstable, so I'm going to stop my video. So we want to make sure that you have access to participants and are able to reach out and call folks. So our Learn and Earn team will reach out to all of the application support centers and will help you partner up with providers and other access to youth in order to make sure that you have the ability to generate those applications. So thank you, first and foremost, for your willingness and interest to be able to connect with young people and the work that you're doing. And we'll see where we can go from there, Amber.
Susie, only thing I'll add to what Susie just mentioned is we are in constant communication with labor industry and other key stakeholders around that. As a matter of fact, at our board of directors tomorrow, we have asked the labor industry to address our board as well. So just as soon as we get information, we're getting it over and out to you. And we'll probably be doing this again a few more times over the next few weeks and over the next few months. So
thank you, Arlo. There is another comment in the chat that we're getting feedback from some of our employer partners that they can't commit to being Learn and Earn partners and can't say if they will be able to host youth this summer. We hear that, absolutely. And our Learn and Earn team will be reaching out to all of the Learn and Earn providers to assess how many slots they have that employer partners can commit to, what contingency planning we need to do in order to make sure that we have the slots and the youth and are able to serve. And so that's something that we are absolutely thinking about, Ashley, and we don't, again, have a firm answer on it, but we are concerned about it and want you to know that we're thinking about that too. So we'll need the collective hive mind to figure out how do we continue to do this and source some other Learn and Earn spots if necessary. And Kiera has put her contact info into the chat, and we'll send that out to everyone as well with the recording so that you can get onto the CareerLink website. And then there's a question, any questions we have about how this affects our current program and recruitment issues for next year? Talk with your contact at Partner for Work directly. Absolutely. We know that this is going to have implications for our programs, not just for this year, but also for next year. And we want to be able to think through all of that with you. And so in any way that we can be helpful on that, this is all new to all of us. And so we want to think that through and provide the best services that we can to the job seekers and businesses who are going to need it. We got a shout out for Dylan's overview of the legislation in the chat. So thank you, Dylan.
Susie,
Any other questions?
Can I
Kristen,
jump back on? So I did find the answer to the question. The email is coming from Kay Kramer on behalf of Trib Inc. But can I ask the providers if they want to email me directly on an email address that they would like put into the PNC that it would go to specifically? My email address is kkkramer@partnerforwork.org. I'll also type it in the message thing down here so people could see it. If you would be willing to send me an email with the address that you would like the PNC invite to go to, that they would be able to fill out the banking information, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
So there's another question in the chat. How can we help workers and their families stay safe and healthy from the virus if they take these surge work opportunities? That is a really big question, and relies on the employer, I think, as well as us and Partner for Work, us collectively, the providers. And so I think that'll depend on what the surge opportunity is. There are some surge opportunities that are call centers, and so some of that can be done from home. There are others that are in person, and I think that the recommendation that we can give is the same recommendation that public health officials give, and not entirely satisfying, to be candid, but to wash your hands, to use hand sanitizer when you can, and to avoid large crowds. And so our expectation with employers is that, if someone is on a job that is an emergency job, then they will follow those recommendations as well. Some spaces, like, healthcare careers that are technical positions, that's not possible, but the healthcare employer would be the entity responsible for helping people to stay safe and healthy in that case. Other questions that folks have? Our team has been talking about this call, and I'll just vamp for a minute so that folks can type questions into the chat or think about them. We've been talking about this call for a little while, and also talking about the cadence of a call like this. And so want to get feedback from you. And you don't have to say this now, or you can type it in the chat. You can send any of us an email. If this information is helpful for you, should we do this once a week? I think that the employment situation isn't necessarily changing as quickly as some other situations are. And so maybe once a day might be a little bit too frequent, but does once a week make sense? Are you interested in talking to us every week? Are we already talking to you too much from our individual staff members? Or, what do you want to make sure that you get out of these calls to make it worth your time? All right, we've got a couple of votes for once a week. And if there's anything too that you think, oh, it would have been really nice to hear from Partner for Work, what is going on with this, then please let us know, and we'll add that to an agenda for next week. Any other questions? Anyone have any good de-stressing compartmentalization tips for me so that I, get my break from my work in my home to my home life in my home? Those I could use too.
I just got a puzzle.
Oh, I have the hardest puzzle in the world right now. It's not helpful.
I was all excited. It's like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's like a Disney classic, 1,000 pieces. Listen, it's not for the faint. It's very difficult. But that will be my break. I'll sit on the floor and get in there. Puzzles are not as easy as you think they are.
No, they're not. I appreciate that, Kira. We have another question in the chat. What's been the biggest resource network that folks have been using to find resources and help clients, specifically as different issues arise with our crew members, jobs, housing, food needs? I'm wondering if others have resources I might not be aware of. So feel free to kind of plunk those down into the chat, and we are happy to share out things as we have them. 211 is a great resource for any of those basic needs. I'm sure, or I hope most of you heard that effectively Port Authority transportation is free because you just have to show your Connect card and they're not taking any cash fares. So hopefully transportation is not a significant barrier for your participants right now. Food insecurity, we certainly know is, and 211 can help connect to food resources. DHS is also doing a yeoman's job of getting food to food insecure people, including families that are quarantined who don't have other access to food, and seniors. So feel free to look at the Allegheny County DHS website or call 211 for that. And DHS has a daily call, thank you, Steve, that's at 4:30 every day to talk about some of those resources. There's a food map on the DHS website. Thanks, Sarah. Some people have that. If the students have bus tickets, will Port Authority take them? My guess is that they won't, but that they don't need them at this point, and that would be a question for Port Authority. My understanding after our team spoke with Port Authority yesterday is that they're not taking any cash. And so if you don't have cash and if you have a Connect card, you're supposed to visually show it to the bus driver when you get onto the rear of the bus, but that they're not actually accepting any fares, so that public transportation is basically free right now. I know that I missed another question, so I'm going to scroll up in the chat, but Aja has a question. My biggest concern is our WIOA fourth quarter after exit employment outcomes coming up. Hear ya, Aja, hear ya. So is there any way that expectation on this will be changed or extended? We've asked the state and the feds, but that's not something that we have control over. So we absolutely recognize that it's going to potentially be an issue and are advocating for you as much as we can. And our board is aware of that as an issue and doing that advocacy as well. There was a question, if we have a student that has a need that's not covered under our contract, I think 211 would be a great resource for that. And then we were asked to share potential online resources so that we could compile. So there is a list of those resources on our website at partnerforwork/COVID-19. Any other resources that people share, like if Steve and Amber are willing to share the NLA resources, we'll send those out to the provider network over email. Oh, and Sarah, thank you. 211 has put through the emergency fund that may help with some of those youth needs. And we were on a call yesterday with the mayor's office that there is a moratorium on evictions. The URA has some resources that they're putting together to help folks who have lost their jobs, who are not yet qualified for unemployment, or for whom unemployment compensation isn't enough. I do want to make sure that everyone is well aware that unfortunately the unemployment compensation side of the house is separate from the work that we do. So we need to support folks who are new to unemployment, but we don't have any control over that system and how that works. And so all that we can do is be the best stewards of the resources that we have and connect to people in the most human way that we can. Oh, Jen shared the COVID-19 resources page on Partner for Work there in the chat, so everyone should have that. And Steve has shared with Jesse and Marky. Thank you so much. And we'll have weekly email updates too to share out this information.
And Susie, I apologize for I have to sign off to prepare for the next conference.
Thanks.
But I just want to again thank you all, and I agree and echo that the weekly chat catch-up update would be relevant. And I just want to show you all my new favorite coffee tea mug. Just keep believing, keep fighting, and keep working hard on behalf of others. So thank you all. We appreciate the work.
All right, any other questions or comments? Anything that anybody wants to share? My sister is a teacher in Chicago, and she said that every Zoom call just ends with everyone sharing their pet at the end of so if you've got your pet close by and you want to Zoom in, feel free to do that. We do weekly meetings. Will they be Thursdays at 10? We'll check our schedules after we get off of this. And I think, does this time tend to work for folks? Seems like it. All right. So we will see what we can do. No pets for a couple of folks. Oh, we got a teddy bear. Oh, and a puppy. All right. Life is better. Thank you all so much. I really, truly appreciate all of you and the work that you do. So thank you. Keep hanging in there. And we're so glad that you are a part of our network. So stay safe and stay healthy. Have a good one, everybody.